The discipline and practice of qualitative field research in psychology, Module 1. The intended learning outcomes for a module are to differentiate fundamental concepts in qualitative field research. The second is to identify the philosophical frameworks in field research. And the third one is to clarify the use of the term method and methodology. Let us begin with the question, what is freedom? What comes to your mind when you hear the word freedom? What are your thoughts about freedom? What is your experience about freedom? Our understanding, values, and actions pertaining to freedom are influenced by specific experiences, inspired by significant persons, or driven by strong thoughts that we read from the book. Yung salitang freedom, hindi naman siya nandiyan from naturally na nandiyan siya from birth. So, nag-evolve siya. Yung konsepto ng freedom na meron tayo sa ating isipan ay nag-evolve siya, nag-develop siya, at na-impluensyahan siya ng iba't ibang aspeto, karanasan, pakikipagkapwa, social media, so on and so forth. So, whatever perspective we have about freedom is fundamentally driven by some external factors. And those factors are in the form of thoughts, ideas, experiences. But then, how certain are we that what we believe in about freedom is the truth? Paano natin malalaman kung yung pinaniniwalaan nating freedom o sinasabi nating kalayaan, yun yung totoo? At kung sasabihin natin yung perspektibo natin ng kalayaan, yun ang totoo, paano mo nasabi? Paano mo nalaman? Paano ka nakakasiguro? And in the first place, what is truth? What is your view about truth? What is your perspective about truth? How did you know about truth? How did you come up with your understanding about truth? Is your truth the truth? Just like freedom and truth, we have sets of beliefs, assumptions, and views on many aspects of our lives. And this we need to clarify. Again, we need to clarify. And similarly, even before we get in the field to conduct our research, we have to clarify our assumptions and beliefs about research. So, hindi tayo pupunta doon na parang research na tayo. Definitely, merong isang perspektibo, isang pananaw, isang framework na mag-guide sa atin towards the path of research. Hindi ibig sabihin na sinabihan ka ng professor mo na gumawa ng research, yun na yun. There should be a specific worldview or views or perspective or paradigms that will guide how we view, how we implement our research. So whether we like it or not, our subjective worldview will influence how we see reality and how we search for truth. Yung nakikita niyo sa picture ngayon, ay I'm here. This is part of my research that I did how many years back? I think that was 12 years ago. So going back, ano yung nag-impluwensya sa akin na pumunta dito? Ano yung dala-dala ko sa aking isipan, sa aking karanasan, na nagtulak sa akin para gumawa ng research with the indigenous people. Okay? Ano yung matlakas na influence sa akin para pumunta dito sa lugar na ito? By the way, these are Manobo communities in specifically in Cotabato. Now we ask the question, what is qualitative research? This is a very simplistic description of research, but later on, as we delve deeper into the perspectives of research, we can go beyond this definition. But as a working definition, let us look into this. First, it is a situated activity that locates the observer in the world. So, inilalagay natin ang sarili natin sa isang sitwasyon sa mundo. Just for example, isang sitwasyon sa bundok with indigenous people, o isang sitwasyon with the working with, let's say, with the OFWs, or work with street children. So those are the situated activity in a specific location. And it consists of a set of interpretive material practices that makes the world visible. So it's like when we do qualitative research, we become a reflection of a specific reality that is happening in a specific location. We become the echo of a specific reality na nagaganap, for example, let's say, sa mga kababaihan. All right? Um, and the next one, it study things in their natural settings. So the natural settings, examples of natural settings, yung bahay natin, yung komunidad natin, the natural setting in the school, the natural setting in the workplace, um, the natural setting of the farmers, the fishers, or the vendors, the poor in the streets. Okay? And in qualitative research, we attempt to interpret phenomena in terms of the meanings people bring to them. So habang tinitingnan natin, for example, the idea of pintakasi. So pintakasi is a phenomenon happening in a specific situation. And we want to understand the meaning that the people put into to that phenomenon, pintakasi. So beyond the meaning that we associate to the phenomenon, what is important in qualitative research is to to get connected with the meaning, the exact meaning people bring into it, to the specific experience. All right. So attached with the question, well, what is the research? Is what is the purpose of research? So before we go into that, this is again another part of my research, trying to understand the needs of the monobo. So this is part of the method that I was doing, that I did to to gather information on the issues, on the concerns of the monobo community. Again, going back to the question, what is the purpose of research? This is a very broad, you see, it's a broad question. And when you talk about this broad question, it can bring you to different answers and to different perspectives. And this is what we exactly want to understand, the different perspectives to understand the purpose of research. And this would lead us to different philosophical framework. So we have to understand from when you go back to history, even during the time of Aristotle, Plato, whereas the Socrates, these are very popular philosophers who initiated the what do you call this, the quest for truth, the quest for meaning, the quest for understanding what is the purpose of life. So the philosophers were actually driven by some situations that are happening in the community. It could probably problems, oppression, or because that that beset the community that make the people suffer. So given the problem in the community, people are digging for more answers on how they can probably get out of the situation. and and similarly, as we move, as life moves forward, okay, people keep on asking because problem um, persists, and when problem persists, questions, inquiry about how we can probably get out of this persisting problem. So um, more inquiry are coming out, more critical questions are coming out to solve some issues. Kaya nga marami tayong mga perspektibong lumalabas upang matugunan ang mga iba't ibang problema sa ating lipunan. And this is actually the purpose of the research. This will lead us actually the purpose of research na iba-iba ang perspektibo sa pagpasok sa research dahil meron tayong mga specific na hinahanap para matugunan ang isang o para maintindihan ang isang sitwasyon. So I will be giving you just a very basic because dahil napakarami nito. And you can actually come up with your own framework to understand things. But just to give you an idea how some frameworks work on on leading a specific research agenda, then let's look into some of this. Let's look into social constructivism. Okay. So I'll give you the task to go deeper into this everywhere in the internet. So you will be able to understand the history, the um, the birth of the social constructivism. But I just simply focus on the basics on how we make use of this perspective in research. So pwede nating dalhin ang social constructivism sa paggawa ng research. So what is the basic tenet of social constructivism? That there are multiple realities constructed through grounded interaction with others. Okay, so maraming aspect ng reality, hindi lang ito isang construct. So given the diversity of people, we can come up with different construction of reality. And the next one is the basic goal. The basic goal when you become a social constructivist researcher is to understand the world in which people live and work. So you would like to really to understand, to go deeper in what is happening in the life of people, immersing in the life of people. So what is the basic awareness that you bring as a researcher? Okay, it is the recognition of personal and professional background in shaping data interpretation. So we have to be aware kapag tayo, for example, ay bumabad sa isang field na kinakailangan maging aware ka kung ano yung dala-dala mo, whether it is personal or professional, because whether you like it or not, yung mga personal thoughts or views na dala-dala mo, even for example, if you are, let's say, very much involved with children and you are working with children, so yung iyong karanasan sa pag-deal sa mga bata ay dadalhin mo yun sa research. You just have to be aware of the um, dividing, the marking line between your personal bias or professional bias. I mean, between and your objective and the objective reality that you would like to find out. Okay, because we might overshadow yung mga bagay na gusto natin makita kung magpapadala tayo sa mga personal at mga professional na pinanggagalingan natin. And the basic research design is to interpret the participants' construction of meaning. So gusto nating makita kung ano ba yung kahulugan ng isang karanasan para sa participants natin. Okay? And the next one is the pragmatism. I think you're very much familiar with this. So you can be very, 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 very pragmatic in viewing research. What is the basic tenet? The basic view is that reality is what is useful and practical and what works. So kailangan maging practical yung research mo. So the goal of the pragmatist perspective is to find solution to real world problems. So, solusyon ang hinahanap natin. Hindi ka nalang basta gumagawa ng research. Parang just to describe things. You also would want to come up with a solution to solve a specific problem. And the next one is the basic awareness of researcher is to appreciate the diverse approaches to collecting and analyzing the context in which research takes place. So maraming approaches para makita yung mga nangyayari sa paligid. So yun yung basic awareness ng isang pragmatist. So hindi lang siya na na parang tawag dito na mag-focus group discussion ka lang paano ko mo yung datos. There's so many ways of dealing with data. So the next one is the basic research design. To design a research, the pragmatists would usually use the most appropriate methods for addressing the research question and for coming up with solutions to a problem. So yung methods na gagamitin niya ay o mga tanong na i-raise niya ay yung makakapag-come up ng solution sa isang problema. Okay. And the next one is, for example, this is an example again of a perspective, that philosophical views that you can bring is the feminism, right? So, kung ikaw ay merong advocacy sa mga kababaihan, so you can bring this perspective with you, okay? So the basic tenet is to conduct research that is transformative of women, okay? And the basic goal is to understand and address concerns and issues that impact women, okay? And the basic awareness as a researcher, women rights advocacy. So dala-dala mo yung awareness na yan, that you are advocating the rights of women, okay? And the basic research design, we raise questions that relate to centrality of gender in shaping of our consciousness. So, kung magdi-design ka ng isang research na gusto mo na ang kalalabasan nito ay makapag-impluwensya ka ng kaisipan na susuporta sa agenda ng mga kababaihan. All right, critical realism. Critical realism, the basic tenet is about that reality is a social structure that addresses issues of oppression, freedom, individuality, inclusivity, and the like. Alright? So, kung ang advokasya mo ay karapatang pantao, nababagay sa iyo itong perspektibo na ito. And the basic goal is to address areas of inequities and empower humans. Right? And the basic awareness as a researcher is the acknowledgement of our own power, engagement in dialogues, and use of theory to interpret social action. And the basic research design is design research in such a way that transforms the underlying orders of social life. So you design the research in such a way that it will bring transformation in the life of the community, in the life of humanity. Okay? Ngayon, anong klaseng philosophical framework ang dadalhin mo? So we really need to clarify this. So in my case, very often nandoon ako sa aspeto lagi ng ano ba ako? Madalas doon sa pragmatism, critical realism, ano pa ba? Very often doon naglalaro yung aking framework. So kapag pupunta ako sa research, hindi siya nawawala. Madalas doon ako lagi nagdudwell. Okay. Now, let us get into the difference between qualitative field research and quantitative field research. Ito napaka-basic lang ito. But let us now look into some areas para mas makita natin yung tawag ito, yung difference ng dalawa. So when we talk about orientation towards the theory, quantitative is more deductive, while qualitative is more of inductive. Quantitative is more of testing the theory, while the qualitative research is more of generating theory. So kung feel mo makapag-come up ng sarili mong teorya, okay, then dito ka sa qualitative. Pero kung gusto mo namang i-test ang isang theory, okay, for example, the theory of, let's say, multiple intelligence. So dito ka sa quantitative, okay? All right. So, what else? Let's see here. Let's look into assessment. Okay. For example, assessment. Of course, ang quantitative gumagamit lagi ng standardized assessment. Ang qualitative naman, as much as possible, ina-avoid niya to. Merong pamamaraan para kumuha ng datos na hindi ka na kailangan gumamit ng assessment. Kaya kinakailangan bumabad ka nga sa isang population o sa isang community para, tawag dito, makakuha ka ng datos. Okay? Yung level of involvement ng isang researcher. So, quantitative, sinasabi na parang low to medium. Tapos, yung qualitative naman, high. Pero depende eh. Depende sa goal. Depende sa purpose mo. Depende sa design ng research. Maaari din naman kasi na low. Pwede rin maging low ang qualitative. At pwede rin maging high ang quantitative. Okay, it's still very relative to a specific purpose or a specific agenda. Okay, let's go into the amount of time spent. Again, ang nakaspecify dito, low and high. Pero again, it depends sa agenda mo, sa purpose mo, sa paggawa ng research. Pwede rin kasing yung oras mo sa paggawa ng quantitative, pwedeng napakahaba rin yan eh. At ganun din sa qualitative research. Pwedeng madali at pwede ring pangmahabaan. Okay? Sa pag-analyze naman ng datos, ang quantitative, of course, gumagamit ng statistics. Ang qualitative, hindi siya gumagamit ng statistics. Okay? Then, contextual information. When you're talking about the context, saying it is the little yung kanyang contextual component. Pagdating naman sa qualitative, masyadong malawak yung konteksto na tinitingnan mo kapag gumagawa ka ng research. Kasi sa quantitative, kasi is very specific eh. Alright? Eh, hindi ka dapat lumabas doon for example, sa variable na iniimbestigahan mo. Sa qualitative research kasi, miski ito lang ang focus mo, for example, working on the resilience of the community, pwede siyang, pag nandun ka na sa community, pwede na siyang pumunta kung saan-saan eh. Okay? Alright. So more or less, yung kanyang differences. Okay. Moving on. What is the difference between method and methodology? Okay. May nagtanong na nito last time. Okay. Previously, ang akala ko pareho din ang paggamit nito. Pero mahalaga rin na maintindihan natin yung pagkakaiba nito sa paggamit natin sa research. Okay. Alright. Pag sinabi mong methodology, isa siyang perspektibo ng pagbubuo ng research. It is a paradigm. It is also a strategic framework to understand and interpret a phenomenon. Okay? And it covers the basic beliefs that guide our research, that guide our research action. Okay? I will be giving an example of these later on. And when we talk about method, it is the research activity that will help a researcher gather and understand the data. And the next one is method are tools, instrument, and activities that actualize a specific methodology. So, kinakailangan mo ng method para ma-actualize mo ang methodology. Alright. So, let us now look into this structure that I made. So, lagi kang paggagawa ka ng research, lagi kang magsisimula sa isang ano ba yung pananaw ko sa research. And for example, kung ang pananaw ko is pragmatism and critical realism, at gusto kong pag-aralan, ano ba gusto kong pag-aralan? Let's say, ah, ano ba yan? Gusto kong makatulong sa isang komunidad. At sa pagtulong sa komunidad, gusto kong makita yung kanilang proseso, yung kanilang strength na komunidad. Gusto kong gamitin yung strength na yon para ma-solve ng komunidad ang kanilang problema. Okay? O sabihin natin yung Pintakasi, right? Na nabasa nyo doon sa isa sa mga articles na sinulat ko. So, isang konsepto ng komunidad yon, babahagi siya ng critical realism. At the same time also, gusto mong gamitin yung Pintakasi para ma-solve ang problema. So, ang gagamitin mong perspektibo is the pragmatism and critical realism. Then, anong klaseng metodolohiya ang gagamitin mo to actualize this? So, kung mapapansin niyo yung research in tatlong articles na ginawa ko, yung research na binuo ko, naglalaro siya sa action research and ethnography. So, yung himay ko doon sa community process, which is Pintakasi, kultura kasi yan eh, pumapasok din siya sa ethnography. Pero yung paggamit ng Pintakasi para masolve ang problema, so binubuo mo yung research at the same time, ginagamit mo siya na maging solusyon sa problema ng komunidad. So, nagiging action research siya. So, ngayon, ano ang gagamitin mo na pamamaraan para makakuha ng datos given this methodology? So, gagamit ka ng mga method na participant observation, na ibig sabihin ng participant observation, na parang bahagi ka na sa nangyayari sa komunidad. For example, I'm dealing with the farmers. So, para makita ko yung galaw ng mga farmers, so kailangan kong sumama sa pag-farming. Parang ganon. Okay? Ang pag-interview, ang pag-focus group discussion. Kasama na rin yan, for example, yung community validation. Kung gusto mong, for example, ito yung interpretation ko sa salitang, let's say, pagtutulungan ng mga tao. So, kinakailangan ko i-validate yan sa pagbalik nung konsepto sa mga tao. Pagtatanong sa kanila, tama ba yung interpretation ko doon sa karanasan ninyo? Maaaring kasi maging mali yung interpretation ko. But in order to validate the experience of the people, you bring it back to the people. So isa sa mga method na ginamit ko noon ay yung community validation. So, yan. So, later on, I will be giving you more examples on methodology and method and driven by philosophical framework. Okay? All right. Okay. What is psychological field research? So, yung picture nyo nakikita dito, isa bahagi ito nung ginagawa ko yung research ko on spirituality. So, isa lang ito sa mga bata na interview ko on what is happening in their lives during the armed conflict, so on and so forth. Okay. Again, going back, what is psychological field research? Again, we answered that with another question. Okay. So, when we deal with psychological field research, we actually we try to answer specific questions. Many of these already elaborated in the previous slides. So, what perspective and experiences do you bring to your research? So, kaya sinasabi ko kanina, whether we like it or not, dinadala mo yung sarili mong perspektibo kapag pumasok ka, for example, sa komunidad. So, yung lagi kong perspektibo, for example, is yung protection ng mga bata, protection ng karapatang pangtao, at yung paghahanap ng iba't ibang pamamaraan para matugunan yung needs na problema ng isang komunidad. So, lagi kong dala-dala yung karanasan na yun. Now, how do your beliefs guide your action as a researcher? So, we need to clarify that because sometimes we might be overwhelmed by our personal beliefs na minsan na water down na yung ating goal bilang isang researcher at yung na parang nai-impluwensyahan na ng personal mong paniniwala yung pag-gather mo ng data. Okay? And the third one is how do your philosophical and theoretical frameworks inform your choice of research and approaches. So we have discussed that already. Okay? In what way does your research approach influence the methods, okay, used for data collection and analysis? We already have discussed that. Okay? And what contributes to your decisions related to rigor, inferences, and use of findings? Kapag nasa field research ka, ang dami-daming aspeto na maaaring mag-contribute para makadagdag doon sa lakas, sa strength ng research mo. And the only thing that we need to be aware of is to strengthen our observation on how we see things. In our succeeding topics, we were going to talk about that. Okay. So again, in short, what is psychological field research? Psychological field research is fundamentally driven by perspective, driven by some scientific empirical forces that drives inspiration, that drives insights into how we're going to deal with with the agenda that we have for research. Okay. Warning. Um, Caveat. When we begin our qualitative research journey, it is essential that we know our position in view of our credo or our beliefs. And we should be aware that we are embedding those suppositions in research processes, implicitly or explicitly. Okay? So, na-mention ko na yan kanina, na kinakailangan mo bantayan yung mga pinaniniwalaan mo. Hindi ka lang basta parang nag-gather ng datos. Kasi gustuhin mo mati hindi, maraming pwedeng maka-impluwensya sa paggawa na mo, sa paggawa mo ng research. So you have to clarify that. Okay? And another caveat, we need to draw the line between what we believe in and the reality and the truth that are being presented to us by the data. Okay? Just for example, masyado yung advocacy mo about human rights. Tapos merong issue na nangyayari doon sa let's say sa community na wherein you are gathering the data. Pwede rin kasing masaturate mo yung pagtingin mo doon sa phenomenon doon sa community, um, doon sa personal na nangyayari sa iyo. Just for example, medyo masyadong masakit yung nangyari sa iyo sa isang karanasan at minsan i-connect mo yun doon sa nakikita mo. So, pero medyo nagiging tawag ito na nagkakaroon ng shadow yung pagtingin mo doon sa, tawag dito, doon sa some phenomena na gusto mong obserbahan. Okay lang naman yon. There's nothing really wrong about that. There's, ano ito, parte ng ano yun parte ng pagkatao mo yun hindi mo siya pwedeng iwalay. But we only have to be aware about that. Okay? At a certain point, we have to, let's say, stop for a while and see things from a distance na pwede mong tawag ito, i-identify yung pagtingin ko dito dahil dito sa aking paniniwala. At pwede rin yung pagtingin ko dito dahil ay naayon doon sa kung anong interpretasyon ng mga tao na inoobserbahan ko. Okay? Okay, let us go back to the article that I have written that I sent to you. Ito pala yung isang metodolohiya na ginamit ko sa paggawa ng research na ito na ang title nito, The Psychosocial Demography and Resources of Disadvantaged Children in Armed Conflict and Sustainable Community Child Protection Process, a Case Study. Okay? So kung makikita nyo dito, isang ano lang to, isang part lang ng ano yan, ng method na ginamit ko. At napakarami pang experiences, karanasan ang nangyayari sa picture na ito na hindi kayang tawag ito i-echo, i-picture out, i-reflect ng picture to cover what really happened in this research. So I'm just trying to give you um, an idea on how what yung diniscuss ko kanina kung paano naging realidad ito sa paggawa ng research. So and now for your activity, I would like you to answer this very, very briefly by using the form that I will attach later on in in our Teams chat. So based on module 1, what is qualitative field research? And in the article, what is the philosophical framework used? In the article, what is the methodology used? And in the article also, what are the methods used by the researcher? So this exercise is simply just to make you aware of the differences, the different concepts used. For example, the difference between methodology and methods, because this was clearly stipulated in my research. And even my philosophical framework, I think it is implicitly mentioned. You only have to find it out. Okay. Okay, that ends my discussion for this topic. So what you see here is another activity that I had with the indigenous people. So ito nakikita nyo na yan, uh, isang device yan na ginagamit sa pagluluto. Pagluluto. Di ba pag kahoy yung ginagamit mo yung panggatong, iniipan mo siya. Itong bamboo na yan, meron siya dito. Ito yung parang tawag to, handle na yan, pinupush mo siya pababa para magbuga ng hangin. So, hindi mo na kinakailangang hipan. So, ipupush mo lang yan para magbuga ng hangin sa ilalim. Okay? So, it might sound simple, but that's part of your role as a researcher. Marami kang makikita na, na pwedeng maging bahagi ng datos mo sa research. Okay. So that's all. And after this, I will be entertaining some of your questions. Thank you for listening.